On my birthday, my family gave me a special chair at dinner, then laughed when it collapsed under me. When I got up, I smiled. A week later, their group vacation was cancelled, by me, with their refunds rerouted. My name is Adrian Myers. I work in data security for a firm in Albany, New York, and I've always been the dependable one in my family. The kind who gets the birthday cards out on time, remembers everyone's kids' names, and offers to help clean up after dinner when everyone else suddenly has to check an email. I was married once, to a man named Patrick, who cheated on me after 10 years of marriage. The affair wasn't a one-night slip-up either, it was a 2-year side relationship with a woman who had sat at my table for Thanksgiving. After the divorce, I didn't ask for sympathy. I just asked for space. Instead, I got sarcasm, eye rolls, and unsolicited life advice from my younger siblings, as if my failed marriage was some personal embarrassment for them. My mother, Dolores, never said it aloud, but I could tell she blamed me. In her eyes, I had embarrassed the family. My sister Yvette started excluding me from casual get-togethers. My brother Silas acted like everything I said was a punchline waiting to happen. But I still showed up. For the holidays. To birthdays. To backyard barbecues and baby showers. Because somewhere deep in me, there was still that fragile belief that maybe family just goes through phases. Then came my 47th birthday. I didn't ask for a party. I don't really care for big celebrations anymore. But Dolores insisted. Just a small dinner, she said, nothing fancy. We were meeting at her house in Troy, the one she's lived in since before Dad died. Same creaky stairs, same mismatched silverware, same heavy beige curtains. I walked in with a bottle of Pinot Noir and a little box of macarons from that French bakery on Lark Street. Dolores loves those. The table was already set, streamers strung across the ceiling, and a shiny silver "Happy Birthday Adrian" balloon floating at the head of the table. It looked festive in a way that felt off. Like they were playing house more than celebrating. Everyone was there. Dolores. Yvette and her husband Dale. Silas, of course, lounging back like he owned the place. Yvette's kids were upstairs, glued to their iPads. As I approached the dining table, I noticed a chair that was different. It looked like an old wooden one from the attic, worn legs, a thin seat cushion, and the slightest wobble as I rested my hand on it. I hesitated. Silas waved me over. That one's for the birthday queen, he said, grinning. My gut told me not to sit down. But they were all watching, and I was tired of being the sensitive one. I smiled, walked around the table, and sat. Crack. The leg splintered beneath me, and the chair gave out like a cheap lawn toy. I went down hard. The plate shattered. My left elbow hit the tile floor. The wine glass flipped and shattered beside me. And the room? It exploded with laughter. Holy crap. That chair was older than we are. Silas howled. Yvette cackled like it was a sketch on SNL. Even Dale, who usually avoids this kind of thing, smirked behind his napkin. My mother, my own mother, let out a chuckle before muttering, "Well, that's unfortunate." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I stood up slowly, brushing off my pants. I looked at the broken chair. Then at them. They were still laughing. No one was helping me up. Wow, I said quietly. Special chair, huh? Silas snorted, just a little birthday surprise. Lighten up. I smiled. A genuine, tight-lipped smile. Thanks for dinner, I said, but I think I'll head home. Oh come on, Adrian, it was just a joke, Yvette called after me. I didn't respond. I walked out, got into my car, and sat there in the dark for 15 minutes. That's when it clicked. All the years of small slights. The jokes about my weight. The rolled eyes. The exclusion from trips. The forgotten invitations. The snide comments about living alone. The condescending remarks about trying therapy. The fake concern. I knew something they didn't. Yvette and Silas had been planning a Costa Rica vacation for months. A big group getaway. Dale was going too. My mother wasn't, but she'd helped with some of the booking. Her credit card had secured the deposit. It was supposed to be this luxurious 10-day trip to Guanacaste with oceanfront villas and ATVs and spa days. I knew the dates, the airline, even the booking platform because they had been dumb enough to talk about it loudly in front of me at Easter when they thought I wasn't listening. And Silas, being the smug idiot he is, once asked me to help him set up a better password manager and then used the same damn master password across his accounts. So I made a plan. A quiet, meticulous, legal plan. And I executed it without a single trace of panic. I waited a few days before putting my plan into motion. Just enough time for the chair incident to fade into the background, at least in their minds. For me, it was front and center. Not because I was physically hurt, though my elbow stayed sore for a while, but because it confirmed something I had tried so hard not to believe, that my family didn't just find me annoying, they genuinely didn't respect me. That realization hit harder than the tile floor. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I work in data security. Most people think that just means firewalls and phishing awareness training. But my specialty is a little more nuanced. I deal with account recovery systems and back-end platforms, things that help companies verify user identity, route sensitive requests, and manage financial data securely. I've been doing it for over 20 years. I know how the systems work, how support teams operate, and, most importantly, how to blend in as a legitimate request when you have access to the right bits of information. So, I started collecting those bits. Over the next few days, I quietly pulled together what I needed: the booking ID for their Costa Rica trip, which I spotted weeks earlier on an email Silas had opened on my laptop at a barbecue. He never logged out. The name of the travel aggregator they used, confirmed from a sticker still on Yvette's car from a previous trip with the same company. Last 4 digits of the credit card used to reserve the trip. My mother had left a receipt sitting out in her kitchen months ago. Dates, destination, and names of everyone in the group, thanks to a group photo planning text I glimpsed during a visit to Dolores's house. They were all gushing over matching travel shirts. With all of that, I went to work. I started by spoofing a basic email request to the travel platform's customer service portal. I didn't go straight for the kill. That's what amateurs do. No, I played it slow. I posed as Silas. Hi, I recently booked a group trip under booking ID ############################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################### Can someone help me verify the refund process just in case we need to cancel? They responded within 24 hours. Once I got the green light for a refund to an alternate card, should one be provided, I waited. I needed perfect timing. Their trip was scheduled to begin on a Friday. I submitted the official cancellation request on the Sunday before. Family emergency. We've had a sudden medical situation. I understand this is close to the travel date, but we'd appreciate any partial refund that may still apply. Please use the alternate card on file. I provided my own card. One of those online bank accounts that you can open in 90 seconds with a virtual debit card. Totally legal, completely untraceable to the casual eye. To my shock, they refunded 100%. Apparently, the package had been marked under a flexible promotion due to earlier COVID policy extensions. The travel company didn't even blink. Within 48 hours, $6,248.90 was back in someone's account. Mine. I checked my balance 5 times to be sure. Then I smiled. A deep, relieved smile. Not because I got the money, though I won't lie, that was satisfying, but because I had taken something intangible from them: control, dignity, power. I didn't answer the phone when Silas called the first time. Or the second. Or the third. Yvette tried next, then Dale. Even my mother left a voicemail in that tired, disappointed voice she reserves for when I've embarrassed her in front of company. Finally, the text came through: Silas, you are sick. You went too far this time. You better fix this or I swear to God. Yvette, Adrian, what the hell did you do? We're supposed to leave in 3 days. I waited a full hour, then replied with just 3 words: me, special enough now? Then I turned my phone off and poured myself a glass of wine. The cheap kind. It tasted incredible. 2 days later, I got an email from the travel agency confirming that, per the customer's request, the itinerary has been permanently cancelled and funds successfully transferred to the designated account. That was the end of that. Except, of course, it wasn't. Because families don't let things go. Especially not mine. When I finally picked up a call, 2 days after their departure date, Dolores didn't yell. She sighed. That long, theatrical sigh she uses to make it seem like you failed her, and not the other way around. I don't know what kind of satisfaction you got out of this, Adrian, she said. I stayed quiet. But you've alienated everyone. Was it worth it? That word, alienated, made me laugh. Not loudly. Just a quiet, amused sound. They alienated me a long time ago, Mom, I said. I just finally responded. She didn't reply. I heard her breathing. Then the line went dead. For the next week, I was treated to the full family freeze-out. Group chats I was in went silent. Facebook posts about betrayal within your own bloodline popped up, suspiciously vague but clearly directed. My name never came up directly, of course, too cowardly for that, but the message was clear: I was now the villain in their narrative. And I was okay with that. Better the villain than the punchline. The funny thing about being painted as the villain is that it gives you freedom. Once people decide you're the problem, they stop expecting you to play nice. They drop the illusion of civility, which means you no longer have to waste energy maintaining it. I noticed the shift immediately. Dolores stopped texting. Normally, she'd send those passive-aggressive check-ins, just making sure you're not too busy to visit your mother, but they disappeared entirely. She didn't call, didn't forward me the monthly utility bill for the family home she always accidentally split among her adult kids, even though she could afford it. Yvette, ever the high and mighty nurse, went into full martyr mode on social media. She posted vague quotes about toxic people needing to be cut off for mental health, and made sure to tag every wellness coach she followed. Dale, unsurprisingly, kept his head down. He was always more of a background character, playing peacekeeper between the chaos and her ego. Silas, however, wasn't finished. He emailed me, 3 paragraphs, blaming me for emotional sabotage, claiming I had manipulated the system and stolen thousands of dollars from our family. He ended with a charming thread about seeing what legal channels might have to say. I didn't respond. But I did forward the email to an old college friend of mine, an attorney who now works in digital forensics for a firm in Manhattan. He read the entire thing and replied with, unless he signed a written agreement giving someone else control of the refund, or unless you impersonated him with intent to defraud, this won't hold. You used authorized access. Gray area at best. He'd be laughed out of a courtroom. I saved that email. Not that I ever planned to use it. But it was comforting to know. Besides, I knew Silas wouldn't go to court. That would mean admitting to their failed prank. To the fact that he tricked his own sister into sitting in a deliberately broken chair. That he laughed while I was on the floor. He'd have to explain that on a stand, to lawyers, in front of a judge. Not a chance. He might be petty, but he's not stupid. So life went on. Quietly, peacefully, beautifully. I went back to work. Cleaned up my apartment. Reorganized my pantry. Spent a long weekend in Vermont with a friend from a book club who owns a little cabin near Killington. We baked, hiked, drank mulled wine, and watched the snow fall in silence. No one laughed when I sat down. No one rolled their eyes when I spoke. It felt like healing. Then, a few weeks after the whole trip debacle, I got a knock on my door. It was Dolores. She never visits. Ever. Last time she came to my place was 4 years ago when I first moved in after the divorce. She had stood in the doorway, looked around at the modest but cozy apartment I'd carved out for myself, and sniffed like something smelled off. This time, she didn't even wait for an invite. She just walked in, sat down on the couch, and stared at me. I want you to fix this, she said, no preamble. I raised an eyebrow. Fix what, Mom? This rift. You've divided the family. I laughed. I couldn't help it. I divided the family? Was it the chair, or the laughter that did it? She flinched. Not visibly, but her mouth pressed into that tight line she gets when she knows she's lost control of the narrative. That was just a joke, she said. No, I said, it was humiliation wrapped in ribbon and called a joke. She looked away. After a moment, she sighed. You've always been sensitive. Sensitivity is not the same as self-respect, I replied. I let a lot of things slide, Mom. But not this. She stayed another 20 minutes, mostly trying to guilt me into contacting Yvette and Silas. Said things like, he's still your brother, and family is family, and my personal favorite, you're not getting any younger, Adrian. This grudge will follow you into old age. What she didn't know, what none of them seemed to understand, was that it wasn't a grudge. It was a boundary. One I should have drawn years ago. After she left, I didn't cry. I didn't rant. I sat at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and booked myself a week-long trip to Sedona, Arizona. I'd always wanted to see the red rocks and the stars without city glare. I used part of the vacation refund money. Poetic, I know. As I clicked confirm on the booking, I thought about how strange it was that it took a single chair collapsing to finally stand up for myself. Not with screaming or accusations or family interventions. Just strategy. Quiet clarity. Deliberate action. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. The anger had burned off, like fog under the morning sun. All that was left was the truth. And truth is a funny thing, it doesn't need anyone's permission to exist. But of course, the story didn't end there. Not with my family. Not even close. It was almost eerie how quiet things got after my trip to Sedona. The landscape there had done something to me. I had stood on Cathedral Rock at sunrise, surrounded by colors so vivid they didn't seem real, deep rust reds, purples, golden yellows spilling across the desert sky. I'd breathed in dry, ancient air and felt untethered. Lighter. But returning home reminded me quickly that peace, as beautiful as it is, needs to be defended. The family hadn't truly let things go. A few weeks after I got back, a neighbor mentioned someone had been asking around about me. Described him as stocky, real smug, black jacket. Silas. He'd never once visited my apartment building before. Now suddenly he's doing drive-bys? I knew the petty part of him was still seething. Not because he missed me, but because I'd gotten the last laugh, and he hadn't figured out how to steal it back. Then came the email. From Dolores. Subject line, Family Business Opportunity. I opened it with the same dread most people reserve for IRS letters. It was a long-winded explanation about a rental property she had inherited from a cousin in Hudson, an old two-story Victorian house with decent bones but in desperate need of renovation. Fixer-upper, she called it. She and Silas had apparently decided to turn it into a short-term vacation rental. A little family side hustle. Yvette will manage bookings. Silas will handle the renovations. I thought you, with your tech background, could oversee the platform and finances. Family-owned. We'd split the profits equally, of course. I stared at the screen. It was such a Dolores move, extending an olive branch, but only when there was money involved. The unspoken expectation was that I'd be grateful, obedient, and above all, quiet. That I'd take the scraps of inclusion now that I'd had my fun and fall back into the background where I belonged. Except I had changed. And I had an idea. I emailed back, sounds interesting. I'd like to meet and go over everything. Let's talk about the details. 2 days later, I met them at the property. It was worse than I imagined. Cracked ceilings. Outdated wiring. Faint smell of mildew clinging to the corners. Yvette showed up 40 minutes late, muttering about being double-booked. Silas acted like he was the foreman of a real estate empire. Dolores brought a folder of notes and looked at me like I was a lab specimen under review. They had no clue what they were doing. But I did. I nodded along. Smiled politely. Took notes. Sure, I can build out the listing site, I said. I'll even manage the calendar, security deposits, reviews, all of it. Let's just make sure it's in writing. They seemed surprised, even relieved, when I asked to formalize everything. Dolores, ever the matriarch, insisted she draw up a family agreement herself. I politely declined. I'd prefer we use an attorney. Just so everything's clear. They agreed, reluctantly. A few weeks later, we signed an operating agreement. Equal shares, equal responsibilities, with clearly defined roles. Here's what they didn't notice buried in the fine print: I made the entity an LLC in my name. I was listed as the registered agent, with controlling interest if either Yvette or Silas missed their scheduled obligations for more than 60 days. I'd already suspected they would. Silas barely kept a gym membership past a week, and Yvette was drowning in night shifts and childcare. I gave them just enough rope to feel important, while I kept the net. Over the next few months, I built a beautiful website. I optimized listings across Airbnb, VRBO, and Booking.com. I poured hours into it. Created guidebooks. Automated check-ins. Installed a smart lock system tied to my own server. The bookings started trickling in, then pouring. And just like I expected, Yvette missed 2 months of scheduled oversight. She never once responded to guest inquiries. Silas, after one half-baked weekend spent painting the front porch, disappeared. No invoices. No updates. They assumed I'd keep everything going. They were right. But they forgot the fine print. 60 days passed. Then 75. I notified them via certified letter, per our agreement, that due to breach of responsibility, their shares had defaulted to me under the controlling clause. It wasn't personal, I wrote. It was just business. Dolores called me in a rage. She used every word she could summon without swearing. Manipulative, ungrateful, conniving. Said I'd betrayed her. Said I should be ashamed. I let her finish. Then I said, "You put me in a chair you knew would break. I gave you a business. One of us learned something." Click. It's been 6 months. The house in Hudson is now a 5-star rental with a 6-month waiting list during peak season. I reinvested the first $20,000 into updating the kitchen and added solar panels. I renamed it the Pine House, a nod to Dolores's brittle personality, and made sure her name is nowhere on the paperwork. Silas tried to threaten a lawsuit. My lawyer sent him a PDF copy of the operating agreement with the relevant clause highlighted. He never replied. Yvette, after a few bitter texts, went silent. And Dolores? She still tries occasionally. "We should talk," she wrote once, as if we were long-lost strangers catching up over coffee. I left it to read. And the best part? Every time I get a booking confirmation email, I smile. Every 5-star review, every guest who leaves raving about the peaceful space and the attention to detail, that's mine. Built from the very bones of their exclusion. A business born out of betrayal and turned into profit. They thought the chair would collapse on me. But I built a foundation out of that moment. Stronger than any chair they ever offered. And I didn't even need to raise my voice.